Did a U.S. Navy ship in 1986 lock on to some UFOs, or at least attempt to lock onto them in an attempt to engage them in battle? This is a crazy story. Get in here. This is Cosmic Road, where I discuss UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, and share on social media. Oh, and comment below as I'm going through the story. This story comes from Linda Moulton Howe, who is a very well-respected journalist who has been investigating UFOs and cattle mutilations and the like for many decades. One of the pioneers in this subject. She has many great reports and whistleblowers that have come forward. She gets criticized sometimes for letting some stuff through that she probably should have caught. Like there was an alien photo that was clearly CGI that she fell for, and some other stuff like that. However, I think that it's easy to fall for hoaxes. I know I have. But when she gets a military whistleblower, she is very good about vetting those whistleblowers. And she always gets their documents and their forms, proving that they are who they say they are. And usually she will share those with the public, with, certain information redacted. Well, the gentleman that coming forward in this occasion is not using his real name. He's calling himself John Smith. So I would feel better about it if he were using his real name. But he did have to sign NDAs and all of that. And the rest of the story seems to check out. But, let me know what you think. But this incident occurred in 1986, like I said, when he was aboard a Navy vessel in the Indian Ocean, and their ship locked on, or rather saw, some UFOs. They then tried to lock onto those craft with the intention of shooting at them, supposedly, only they could not actually get lock-ons. Anyway, here's the story directly from Linda and John.
He sent me a written summary about his UFO experience at age 22 when he was in the U.S. Navy during the summer 1986 WestPac. That means the mission location was in the Western Pacific in the Indian Ocean. The ship was the USS Samuel Gompers AD-37, an American destroyer tender that was sailing solo. Its goal was to remain independent, staying away from all other ships. No one was to know where they were for intelligence reasons. That mission lasted about 6 months. The Indian Ocean is the third largest of the world's 5 oceanic divisions, covering about 20% of the water on the Earth's surface. That's 27,240,000 square miles. The Indian Ocean is bounded by Asia to the north, Africa to the west, and Australia to the east. To the south, it is bounded by the Southern Ocean of Antarctica. The USS Samuel Gompers destroyer tender was commissioned the first of her class in July of 1967. The ship was named after a 19th century American labor leader. It was designed to be a floating repair shop for ships of the U.S. Navy, either in port or at sea. By the summer of 1986, the large ship was in the Indian Ocean on a Western Pacific classified training cruise, and one night at 2:30 a.m., 22-year-old navigator John Smith from Maryland was working on the bridge. This was his first and only Western Pacific WestPac assignment. Today, he is 58 years old, in ill health, and wants to tell the truth about what he saw with his own eyes in 1986 in the Indian Ocean. He begins by reading a report that he wrote for me.
At that time, I was a QM. I was a quartermaster on board the Samuel Gompers. I was working on the bridge at the time. The night of the experience, the bridge was all quiet. Weather conditions, the sky was clear, calm seas, 2-foot wind waves, Visibility was out to nominal horizon, approximately 7 nautical miles. We had a clear night. We were conducting special operations and running solo. We had taken great pains to be hidden and our presence unknown. No other ships or aircraft had been seen for 2 days. At approximately 2:30 a.m., a radio call came over the 1MC from CIC, the Combat Information Center. They sounded confused, unsure of what they were saying. They reported seeing something on radar. They said the contacts were there, then not there. Another call came from the lookouts outside above the main bridge. They were clearly shaken and uncertain on what they were seeing. I asked them to calm down and speak clearly. They reported lights of multiple colors appearing and disappearing in an erratic fashion. I looked at the radar repeater. I saw some contacts for a quick moment, but they were gone. At this point, Lieutenant Commander Gregory and I quickly grabbed a couple of binoculars. We went out to the starboard bridge wing. The lights were reported to be appearing about 1,000 yards dead off of our stern at an altitude angle of 30 degrees and maintaining position. I remember one of the lookouts saying it looked like they were shadowing us. Both Lieutenant Gregory and I immediately saw the lights. I remember the officer of the deck giving me a bewildered look and saying something like, "Who the hell is that?" We looked on as the lights kept popping in and out. I counted 12 to 15 lights appearing in red, green, yellow, blue, and orange in color. The officer of the deck and I went back to the chart table, and after a rather intense discussion, we agreed to wake up the captain. Captain John Amos came to the bridge wanting to know what was going on. As soon as he saw the lights, he quickly went back to the bridge and ordered the ship to general quarters. We armed and equipped ourselves. The captain ordered our weapon systems to target, to engage the unknown contacts off our stern. I remember CIC kept reporting back that they were unable to track or lock onto targets. The captain was furious. The bridge became a hornet's nest. I remember the faces of the bridge crew were looking pale, confused, scared. Then it stopped. Approximately 15 minutes after the initial contact, the lights were gone. We remained at combat ready alert until 8 a.m. the next morning. We were reminded of the sensitivity and importance of the operation we were involved in and ordered to not discuss it with anyone. Later, upon returning to port, myself and several others from the bridge crew on duty that night were called into a room on base. We were made to sign documents stating we would never talk about the incident. I remember the crew was pretty uneasy, and no one would directly mention it. I remember writing the log that night. I was told to be accurate and report every detail, so I did. Even though I had lived it, I had a hard time reading it after I wrote it. I remember thinking, this report will never see the light of day, or it will just get rewritten.
And it would seem to be something that would be very upsetting to people in charge of military operations and large ships. They would hear from the radar people that they couldn't get a lock on to these objects that were moving around over the ship.
That's correct. We would call the CIC. Do you have a lock? Do you have anything on your system? What do you see? I kept asking them that, and they were coming back saying, we see it, then it's gone. And then they would say, we see it again. It's showing up, but it's gone now. And this happened several times. So it was just a lot of confusion. We couldn't figure out why it's not on radar. And then when the weapon systems were trying to lock on, they couldn't lock on to anything. So the captain looked bewildered as well.
And it implies that the intelligence associated with those colorful lights knew how to block on radar, knew how to block military systems, and were signaling that they were not going to fight they were not going to attack. They could block our radar and they could block our weapons.
Yes, that was the consensus during that time. Nothing is working. We have no control over the situation. But again, I want to emphasize that I never got a feeling of danger or dread or anything of that nature. It was like playful, like here we are, you can see us, and then you can't see us. They never approached us. They stayed at pretty much the same distance. They were just there, then they were gone.
And you could conclude that they were trying to be friendly and let everybody see them, but they were sending signals that they were not going to do battle.
That's the feeling that I got. They were not being hostile. Nothing affected our ship other than our systems could not lock onto them.
What kind of briefing were you all given about this being UFOs?
Well, basically, we were told that the incident didn't happen, that we weren't to talk about it, that it would be investigated outside of our purviews. For the next few days, we were all just kind of giving each other nods. Can you believe that happened? But we never actually would verbally talk about it.
So they were being playful, they were frolicking around in the sky, but they wouldn't let the Navy lock onto them. So, were they just showing off, just letting them know that they were there? Did they just, they were just kind of doing their own thing and they didn't care if anybody could see them? What do you think? What were those UFOs doing? I do think it's very interesting that the Navy did lock onto them or attempt to lock onto them with the intention of firing upon them. So that brings to mind many, many other incidents where the military tried to shoot at UFOs, and in some cases, apparently with success. In Colonel Philip J. Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, he talks in great detail about the reverse engineering program that the military engaged in with the help of, private companies. And one of the main goals of that program was to develop weapons with which to fire at the UFOs. And at the end of the book, they actually have developed those weapons and are able to fire at the UFOs. And at the end of that book, he says there is one case that he references where they actually do fire and bring one of these craft down. And there are many such supposed incidents of the military firing on UFOs. Sometimes sometimes the UFOs will retaliate and fire back. Sometimes they will simply shift because usually this is from pilots and fighter planes. Sometimes they will take the fighter plane and move it to a different location in the sky. Sometimes they will take the pilot and they will never be seen again. So, who knows how much of that is real and how much of that is not. There is a separate narrative that goes that it had been the military's standing instructions to fire at UFOs until the UFO flyover of Washington, D.C. in 1952, at which point that scared the politicos and the military leaders, and they agreed not to fire on the UFOs. But there are so many stories post-1952 of UFOs being engaged by fighters, or in this case, a Navy ship. Does that mean that it's all BS? Does that mean there are different factions with different orders? I don't know, but I would love to find out. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. That'd be awesome. Please smash that subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. There's social media links below. I would love it if you would follow me and interact with me on social media, and also share these videos as I drop them. Until next time, Cosmic Road out.